And good evening, everybody. We are live. Welcome into the Fieldhouse Files live post-game show after the Pacers somehow come from behind like we saw so many times over the last month and a half to take game two, 120-119, the final. And Tyrese Haliburton, you're going to see him get so much attention, deservedly so, for that incredible effort to go get the rebound, which was tipped, by the way, to Miles Turner. So without him, it doesn't happen. But then for him to take it out, to go to the top of the arc, and then to knock down in those circumstances, needing the bucket to win or the game's basically over, and he buried it. And then did the big balls celebration as he ran down the court. Not surprised by that. I was expecting that one or the WWE thing that he's talked about wanting to do as well. He said post-game, I'll gladly take the fine. I'm Scott Agness of fieldhousefiles.com. You can check out my work there and also the Fieldhouse Files podcast. But sorry I was unable to make it for a game one show. It just turned out while there in Iowa City post-game for Caitlin Clark's homecoming there at Iowa that stuff just ran late. I was caught up talking to people, conducting interviews, and by the time I was able to turn on the game, it was the fourth quarter. So I don't think I could have fairly and accurately described what went down. But now all of a sudden, how about this? Under circumstances, you try to just go into Cleveland and get one game, right? They in turn went there and got two. Head back home here to Indianapolis. Game 3 coming up on Friday at 7:30 p.m. at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, and that one's going to have a raucous atmosphere because now the Pacers are set up and are in a good spot. Just have to win 2 more games over, and they'll get up to 5 chances to do so, including 3 at home. So if you just take care of that business, you're doing quite well, right? And so they are in prime position here. And then on top of that, we should mention the fact that you have all those injuries that have piled up here for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have these countless injuries, including to 2 of their all-stars, and Darius Garland is the first one of concern with a big toe injury. And then inside, Evan Mobley, the defensive player of the year, with him being out, plus DeAndre Hunter as well. So they needed their all-star and Donovan Mitchell, their other one, their third one, to show up. And boy, did he in a big showing, 48 points. But what did I say? What have I been saying? If you caught me on local radio or other hits, I said you are good with Donovan Mitchell getting his. You don't want someone else to necessarily go off. And it's still just about caught them as Max Strus went for a career high 23 points. Jared Allen was solid inside with 22 points and 12 rebounds. But what just impressed me about this one is this Pacers group, particularly the starters, lived up to their name. Let's go back first to the third quarter. I should mention Ben Mathurin, who hadn't really had the playoffs I think that he would like, had 10 points in the third quarter where they badly needed it, where the Cavs continued to add to their lead, were +3 in the quarter, and I think took a 14-point lead into that fourth quarter. But down the stretch, the Pacers were down 7 with 45 seconds to go, and they finished the game on an 8-0 burst, and it took every single one of them, right? You had Siakam with the layup. Here's my one thing. I think he's underutilized. How does Siakam, who's your all-star and sometimes your best player out there, only get 8 shots? That's it. I'd like to see more for him. 5 of 8, including a couple big ones down the stretch. Then you had the Nembhard steal, and it took us back to that last series, the Game 5 comeback against the Milwaukee Bucks, where Nembhard had that big steal, and then Gary Trent Jr. lost it that second time. So Nembhard got the steal. Then you go down, and what about the effort from Nesmith, who had already just minutes ago knocked down that corner three-pointer to completely help change the game. But more than that, he ended up drawing that offensive foul. I think after 2 free throws, there was that offensive foul on Donovan Mitchell right on the sideline, like a second as they began their possession. They reviewed it for like a hostile act of flagrant. It was not that at all. It was just an offensive foul. Now, you could argue the larger point, should Donovan have more space and freedom for the offensive player to turn and make a basketball move down the court? But as it was constructed, there you go. And so that was the correct call. So then it becomes Pacers basketball, and what did they do? They executed late, and Haliburton was kicking himself for a missed layup there in the final minute. Miles Turner has 2 as well, right? We saw him miss back-to-back layups. That had to be a little bit concerning there. Haliburton made it a 4-point game, 114-100. And you had, oh, by the way, you did have Siakam miss a free throw, but it was that, I know what it was. It was that Nesmith rebound slam followed by the offensive charge. That was phenomenal. And that, to me, was the turning point. And that's what I wrote at fieldhousefiles.com. While you did have the steal by Nembhard, it was going to the free throw line and Nesmith getting that rebound. You just don't see that very often. That's what made this comeback unique in its own right, is everything had to break the Pacers' way. And it wasn't just like circumstances allowed it. They went out and made it happen, much like in that first quarter in particular. The Cavs went out and made it happen. They went on that 28-6 run after the Pacers led 9-4. And were the more physically imposing team. They got to the free throw line a ton, 13 times in that fourth quarter, 35 for the game. They made 30 of them. How about this? In game 1, the two teams combined for 13 foul shots, and Donovan Mitchell getting 21 of those, making 17. But yeah, you had that Nesmith put back in charge. And then the closing seconds, it's Haliburton getting to the free throw line there. And he made the first with 12.4 seconds left, missed the second. And I don't think he missed that second one on purpose. I really don't. I went back and watched it several times, and he just left it short. He was also almost trying to be too finesse with it and trying to guide it rather than shoot it. And because of that, he had that quick reaction to go in. Now, the TNT cameras that we saw were cutting away to a replay right before the first foul shot and after, so you couldn't get a good look at the bench, whether there were signals from the bench of, hey, you got to miss the second one. But for those reasons, and there being 12 seconds left, I don't think they were intentionally trying to miss that. He was frustrated that it wasn't an and one. Therefore, he was unable to tie the game. So what did he do? After missing the second one, it was Turner who tipped it back to him. Got it over Allen and one other defender. And there was Haliburton who reached up and went and got it and then said, all right, I got a little bit of time, got back to the midcourt center circle around 8 seconds. Plenty of time for him to operate and make his move, and then pulled up, crossed over right to left on Max Strus and went up and elevated for that 3, and he knew it was good. He did. He turned right around, did the big ball celebration, and that's all she wrote. With 1 second left, the Cavs did not even get a shot off. And so the Pacers were victorious in this one, 120-119, the final. In a game that, when the day started, the sportsbooks had the Cavaliers favored by at least 10 points. After the 3 players were ruled out 30 minutes before the game, it only got down to 6. I saw a couple at 5.5. So even the numbers that are guiding these sportsbooks are saying, hey, this is probably a Cavs win. They'll even it up. They're the better team. They had the better record. They were the best team at home in the Eastern Conference. And being at home, that's going to give them 3 or 4 points. We give them advantage there. And guess what? The Pacers defied all of that and were able to complete that 20-point comeback. I invite you, if you're here on this YouTube live and not on the podcast listening later, you can join me in the comments section. Let me know your thoughts and comments or questions from tonight's game. Again, game 3 will be on Friday. Game 4 coming up Sunday night on Mother's Day. So get all your action in Sunday night or Sunday early, and then be able to watch the game coming up on Sunday. All right, let's go to the comments here. MK Sinks, who's been at every one of these post-game shows, I appreciate it. This team has the fan base believing, even went down 14 at the start of the fourth quarter. I still felt they could get it done, and what a way to get it done. Clutch, absolutely. What a gutsy performance, on brand for Rick to play Ty on the last possession. No timeout used. Yeah, and that is a good point. They had 1 timeout left, and they did not use it. The previous one they used, I thought it was interesting. They called that play where they throw it to Ty and allow him to go into the backcourt, which creates that more space for him to operate with and then attack and get downhill. And I think that's what led to him getting to the free throw line, driving from his right side. But they had a timeout, chose not to use it. And you're right, it paid off. When trusting your players certainly pays off. Granny Danger, how can they keep getting away with this? Yeah, no kidding. This is one of those situations where you think it's got to end, right? You think you can't put yourself in this situation again, that your luck and hard play has to run out. And I thought it was funny / notable because I'm not a fan of these in-game interviews. I don't think they add anything. And by the way, being in the media, I'm never going to be one to quick to remove something. But I just don't think in basketball and football, any of that, those in-game interviews are additive. Like you're going to the fourth quarter. Here's Miles Turner on the sideline. He's not going to say anything of value. It's not a criticism of him, but more so the place and time. They're narrow, focused minded. So his next stint, what does he got to do? What did coach just say out of the timeout? Anyway, I thought it was funny at the end of the first quarter. Rick basically said some of his buzzwords he always talks about. And you knew it was coming because they were outplayed. They were not the physical team. They got punched and did not respond there in the first 12 minutes. And he talked about, hey, we got to be tougher. We got to have hard play. And then ultimately that's what they did later on, especially in that second half. I thought it was interesting that he went to play 11 so early on. We saw that in the first quarter and just in the playoffs. I got a lot of little things that guide me based on all that I have seen. Well, first of all, wings went out, I think. Second of all, when it comes down, I'm getting a text. Here we go. Okay. And then second of all here is I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? That's why I don't like text mid going. Come on, Eddie. Anyways, it was a situation here where the Pacers got exactly what they needed to complete that comeback and surprised everyone. Did you see that Cavs crowd? They were stunned, and they were absolutely stunned just seeing this all go down. And I'm sure you were like me and thinking about, I wonder what John Halliburton's seeing. Now, Tyrese's mom and one of his brothers I saw were at the game. Miles Turner's dad was sitting courtside there at the old broadcast table. So they had some of their family and friends. Ty's girlfriend, I believe, was there as well. And so this is going to be a sweet, short flight home, like an hour and a half here. Just remarkable to see what went down and what they were able to overcome, because Donovan Mitchell had a brilliant night. But here's the thing. This is where you should be encouraged as well about a game 3. Donovan Mitchell was the star of the night until late. And by the way, as I put in my at the buzzer, to me, it was Aaron Nesmith. Just hard play after hard play. He drew the foul. He on Donovan Mitchell late. He made his free throws 2 for 2. Finished with a matching Miles Turner's 23-point output, which was remarkable by his standards. 8 of 13 from the field. Had that rebound slam that really should have been an and one as well with the foul on Mitchell. Either way, that it was kind of, he got it back here a couple seconds later after the review. To me, he changed the game. And without his hard play, without his efforts, you do not get in a situation where Tyrese gets to the free throw line or could even get the rebound to match the game output and hit the game winner. I just don't think that it gets to that level. So originally I had Donovan Mitchell slated in that spot, but you can't, it's so hard for me to pencil in a player there on the losing team. I did last series with Giannis just because he was so dominant and made the games at least interesting. And he was clearly the best player in this series. But man, Aaron Nesmith's just tough as nails. And what a value contract. You're one of like a 3-year deal, making $11 million per. Just a remarkable contract, and he's proven to be one of the more reliable players on this Pacers roster, no doubt. Favorite play was the Nesmith tip dunk. Why are the lane violations rarely called? Yeah, you're right about that. I actually thought initially it was a violation because I thought you had to wait till it hit something, the backboard rim, whatever, before you could race in. But the officials certainly didn't see that way. And you will see an occasional lane violation, but that's when a player steps in before the player has even shot. We saw that with Giannis, I think, a couple times. Speaker from the dead, thanks for doing these streams after games. Those of us cannot sleep still appreciate it. Yeah, regardless of what happens, right? You feel that adrenaline, and you're locked into your TV for 2-3 hours. And even if they lost, you're probably pissed off and want to vent. And now with the win, you want to celebrate and think what's to come here. This is a group that takes pride in doing it together, and this was truly one of those circumstances. As I've said, each one of those starting 5 played their part in the final minute, and more than that, you had again Mathurin, what his big third quarter meant, helped them keep it to. It sounds weird to say, but helped keep that to within 14. What if it was a 20-point game into the fourth quarter? I think that would have been too much to overcome. It just is. In a game where the Pacers had a 15-point first quarter, to score more than that in the in the fourth, or to make up that difference in the game in the fourth quarter, you would have to have one hell of a fourth quarter, especially defensively. And guess what? That was their best quarter, the fourth defensively, holding the Cavs to 21 points. They didn't score in the final basically minute. Mitchell made that free throw, but that was it. Corey said, what do you think the Cavs coach complaining again after the game about the Pacers holding and fouling with no calls? Come on, it's the playoffs. Going to be hard. I have not heard his comments from tonight, if that's what you're talking about. I got right to my story and then right to the game. I'll listen to that after the fact, but I'm not surprised. I think some of it is gamesmanship. I do. I remember not Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra doing it. I remember Frank Vogel doing it to us before game one. I think it was of the 2013 Eastern Conference Finals. He set the tone and saying, hey, this is the hardest play. They flop like crazy. Be on alert for flops. I'm telling you, it's the biggest flopping team. The funny thing here is you don't necessarily think, guys, right, of the Pacers being an overly physical, violent, reckless team. No, you don't. You think of a couple hard defenders in Nesmith and Nembhard, two guys that are tough as nails. You think of Siakam, who's just a pro, who's just solid. And again, they got to work him more offensively. They got to call his number more often. And maybe, quite frankly, he's got to demand it too a little bit more. He's the veteran. He's the guy with championship experience. I'm telling you, 5 of 8 from the field, just 12 points, and they win. I would never think that happens. Nope, that's not a winning formula. I think Siakam needs a good 20 points. He needs a good 15 shots. And I think on most nights, he's going to get that. Just the opportunities he didn't take, nor were they there from him. But I did think to go back to the start of the game, I did think it was not necessarily surprising, but how much energy and fight that the Cavs came out with, and also how much they were trying to just minimize Haliburton's impact. What Ty's finished with 4 assists. Look, you tell me Siakam scores 12 points and Haliburton has 4 assists. I don't care that he had 19 points. 4 assists. Pacers don't win that one. 9 times out of 10, they do not. That's what stands out about this one. It's just remarkable here how the Pacers were able to complete the comeback and get this one done. I mean, for Donovan Mitchell, it was the second time with the Cavs to score over 40 points. He nearly had a 50-burger with 48 points. Max Strus had the best game of his playoff career with 23 points. They got to the line 35 times, and the Pacers were still able to get it done. Miles Turner, damn, this hits home. That's so real. Same spot and everything. And talking about LeBron making a 3-point shot from straight on years ago. I thought that's very interesting post there from Miles. Let's go back to the comments here, as many of you have joined me here, and I appreciate it. I know it's late in many time zones, 11:15 or so here in Indianapolis, back from my long weekend over at Iowa City. And now game 3 here in Indianapolis coming up on Friday. But by the way, to answer Corey's question, no, I'm not surprised that Kenny Atkinson, the coach of the year, has done a fine job in Cleveland, is trying to drum up all the human emotion, all the calls that he can get, knowing the Pacers are going to play him hard. They're going to be tight with them, but here you are. Ryan says, wow, Scott, I think my heart rate just now came down. I think it's been an hour since the game ended. Pacers looked off their game for the majority of the quarters. Imagine this team's ceiling when they are hitting on all cylinders, for sure. And I go back to covering this team with Nate McMillan. It became a laughing joke between us because so many times he would repeat why after something didn't happen or after a loss or they came up just short. He'd be like, guys, we got to play a 48-minute game. It's not a 40-minute game. It's not a 38. It's not a 42. You got to play a 48-minute game. And I would kind of roll my eyes and give him a hard time. What do you mean? What does it mean to play a 48-minute game? Beyond what we obviously know. And he enjoyed that, I think. But anyway, this is a perfect example of having to use all 48 minutes to complete the comeback, to find your gear, to come back from that early trouble where the Cavs were just too good early on. And they continued in the third quarter, got up by 20. I think it was 81-61. And the Pacers kept hanging around. And because of their experience here in the last month and a half, they didn't get down. Some teams would have turned in, right? They would have said, all right, we're good. Go ahead and send the reserves in. We'll enjoy the 2 days between games and look ahead to game 3. We already came to Cleveland and got what we wanted, and that was one game. But not this group. No. They continued to fight and saw the door open and saw what finally getting a couple stops can do. And it was just a tremendous final 5 minutes in particular. And what stood out to me too was, by the way, because of fouls, the Cavs were in the penalty for the final 6 minutes, but really did not maximize it. They went it just a couple of times. They did, but not nearly as much as I thought they would try and try to just lean into it and live at the free throw line for the final 6 minutes. Felt like every Cavs player at any point could easily drive down the lane and get it dunked. It looks like the Pacers in the paint was better in game 2, but still work to do there. I would totally agree. I think the Cavs had 70 paint points, I want to say, last game. They had 24 in the first half and 32 in the second half. And to go back to what I said earlier, this is one of the adjustments I think you'll expect from the Pacers is you really want to double and trap Donovan Mitchell more and force it out of his hand. And the other thing, too, is I'm sitting back a little bit and allowing him to shoot. He was 1 of 7 from three-point range. 1 of 7. He made one shot outside of the paint. That's it. That was one three-pointer left corner. I think I did tweet the graphic. One shot. All the rest were inside the paint, and then he got to the free throw line and made 17 of 21. I'm making things more difficult for Donovan. I'm making him have to shoot a couple mid-range, have to shoot a little bit more from beyond the arc. If he's going to throw up 30 shots per game, which he's done in each of the first 2 games, I'm going to lean into the analytics in this standpoint and not allow him to take the layups and dunks and finishes and get to the free throw line as much and force him beating me with the outside shot, because this is a game neither team shot it well from three-point land. The Pacers did better at almost 40%, 11 of 28. And it is notable to me that in this day and age that shooting less than 33s can still win you games. I really think that number should be a little higher at like 42. This team could use a couple more three-point shooters. I really lost that when they traded away Bruce Brown and Buddy Hield. But they took 11 fewer three-point attempts. And in this one, the Cavs were 28% from distance, 11 of 39. It was early on in the game when three-pointers were the difference. It certainly was last game when three-pointers were the big difference. The Pacers were plus 30 from the arc, which helped make up from the difference inside the paint. Chris said lots of comparisons to Reggie by fans tonight. What say you? Were you feeling Reggie magic at all? A little bit. It did feel like one of those late game scenarios, right? Where it's kind of like the 8.9 second scenario here because of the stoppage, the fouls, the steal. Nembhard got that monster steal, the ridiculous rebound, putback, slam dunk, ferocious dunk by Aaron Nesmith, then drawing the charge. And then obviously you're down by 3 there. And so Tyrese makes the first free throw, misses the second. I believe it was not intentional, but Miles going up and getting the rebound. That was 1 of his 8. Tyrese ultimately able to get that tip from Miles where there were 2 other bigs in there. You think the Cavs missed Evan Mobley there? They missed their other big, right? Where they would have had Jared Allen on one side and Evan Mobley on the other. Those are those little moments where you got to think back too. We're adding some size, maybe a DeAndre Hunter out there as well. And Darius Garland could go for 25 to 30 points on you. And how bad does his injury have to be for him not even to give it a go? I hate to see that because I love to see teams at full strength and then a team just win and be better. That's why I'm not a huge fan of outdoor football games, because I want to remove conditions and have a great game and have the best team win. Regardless of conditions and health, I want everybody to be at full strength there. But to your point, yeah, there, Chris, it did feel like there was some magic that was going on there late, just because it was one thing after the next. And, Pacers, again, they weren't perfect. You had Miles Turner miss a couple bunnies underneath. Tyrese was frustrated because he missed a layup underneath that. And then he didn't make this and one opportunity late, but he made it count when it mattered there. Hate how they have to rush to the next game. No post game on the court for Ty. Interview was disappointing. Oh, the TV broadcast. Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. You would like a little bit of a buffer there after the game, right? Because you'd like a little bit of a discussion about what just transpired. Let's break down that final minute where the Pacers had a 95% probability of losing that game. And they didn't. I looked that up this time because after practice the other day, a week ago, Caitlin Clark talked to us and about that. She was at that Game 5 Pacers win. Yeah, 95.9% there on the ESPN probability. And she said, hey, it was 97.1. I can't believe it was even that high. And they came back and won that one as well. It's just, I wish I was charting these over the last month and a half because it feels like there's something ridiculous like 10-2. I can look deeper into the stats once I go off here and I'm no longer live and don't need to bore you as I'm clicking around. But it's just truly been sensational and almost dumbfounding what they have been able to do in late game situations. What else do we got here? A lot of good comments. I appreciate everyone joining me here. Crazy game, but gotta love the Pacers. Still shaking from the last couple of minutes. Still, Wong? Really? It's been an hour. Go have a cocktail or something. No, I don't know. I don't know if you drink. Whatever. I totally get it, though. The adrenaline's running. You're running hot. You're excited about what just happened. And now the Pacers are in prime position to take this series. And then who knows what will happen in the other series, right? We saw the Knicks go into Boston and take game one there. And by the way, I should mention this. I can't believe it's taken me more than 25 minutes to do so. I tweeted earlier in the day the big news for Indy sports fans. And that is, we know the schedule for the Eastern Conference Finals. And regardless how many games it takes for either series, assuming the Pacers advance, I said if the Pacers advance, but I would surely expect it now with the 2-0 lead and home for 3 games, up to three more games if they need it. Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals falls on Sunday, May 25th. Everybody in Indy also knows what else that is of Memorial Day weekend. It's the Indianapolis 500. So on that Sunday, we would indeed have Pacers and Racers in Indianapolis, assuming the Pacers advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, everybody's asked, all right, what time? Well, we don't know that yet. I'm just happy they gave us kind of a date to plan ahead. What I would guess here is it would be a 6 or 7 o'clock tip. That's what it was a handful of years ago. And so that way the race, I think, is start time. I want to say it's earlier now, like noon. It's over on Fox. And then I think it's TNT, if I remember right, carries the Eastern Conference Finals this year. And I would expect it to be kind of that 7 or 8 p.m. But we do not know that. That is entirely a guess. But we would have Pacers and Racers on May 25th. But still, the Pacers have a lot more work to do to get to that point. But you got to like the fact that they are relatively healthy. I should address Tyrese was dealing with that left wrist injury that was a little bit concerning. I was wondering, is that a ligament issue? Did he just fracture a bone or something? It was not immediately clear what happened or when it happened, other than a player, I didn't see who it was, kind of charged into him, I think, on a rebound. His back was to the camera, so he didn't see it. But then he was in obvious pain and grimacing and was clutching it. He went back at halftime, got x-rays according to sideline reporter Jared Greenberg, and then it was noticeably wrapped with even more tape. His primary contact of the athletic trainer is Carl Eaton, so I'm sure he was the one that wrapped him up, got him ready. And he's not going to say if something significant happened, but post-game, Tyrese didn't seem discouraged, and he said, it's fine, I'll be all right. So that's encouraging. And also the fact that when he stayed out there, he knocked down a 3, then I think he knocked down a couple of free throws. And by the way, those green flag, Ryan says, is 12:45. There we go, talking about the 500. So that should be over, 3:45, I want to say. Plenty of time to do the doubleheader. But anyway, I thought there was a notable moment in that second quarter that we shouldn't let pass. And it was after the wrist injury that happened, I think, with 8:27 left in the second quarter. And what that was Tyrese went to the free throw line. And that's where fans in the sold out Rocket Arena of about 19,000 fans did the overrated chant. We got to let this go. It just doesn't make sense. It never did. We're talking about an anonymous player poll that included 9 players. That's it. This wasn't an overwhelming thing. And anyways, so there was the overrated chant, which I go, all right, here we go again. And Tyrese is probably going to get it the rest of this postseason. But did you see what Donovan Mitchell did? He was like Peyton Manning at Lucas Oil Stadium. Quiet down. Stop this. Guys, what are we doing here? I thought that was notable because Donovan follows the league. He knows Tyrese and other players well. And I think the one thing all of us know about Tyrese is he needs something to get him going. And at that point, he hadn't gotten going. He was very quiet. He was struggling. And yeah, great. He tried to warn them. Absolutely. How many times have we seen Tyrese in his career just find a random fan in row 3 and talk shit and need a guy to fire him up and be like, oh, you said, okay, here we go. I've seen it countless times. I saw it in Orlando. We've seen it in New York. seen it in Cleveland before. And here we go again. Not to say that necessarily got him going in this one, but a guy who struggled to start the season, who was never really healthy there early on, who dealt with all kinds of physical and mental challenges. Here he was late in the game, and he came up big for the team. And I go back to that moment. And yeah, Granny, you're right. Donovan tried to warn them and said, hey, you do not wake the sleeping. But it reminded me of the Lance Stevenson and LeBron thing, right? LeBron was quiet in whatever game that was more than 10 years ago. And Lance blew in his ear. It was funny. It's a great moment, but you do not wake the sleeping giant. You do not. And look what happened. What else do we got here? A lot of comments. Oh, the diff. Yeah. So the fans that don't know, the diff is, well, in this case, as you reference here, is the series, and that's 0-2 in favor of the Pacers, obviously. But it's weird how they throw, excuse me. It's weird how they throw that graphic on that giant scoreboard at Rocket Arena. And another thing I was discussing on social media during the game, we gotta quiet down some of the pyrotechnics before the game, because that first quarter, first half, it was foggy. It was foggy in there. You would have thought it was an ABA basketball game that the cameras were trying to see through. And I can tell you, having covered a dozen games, Pacer games at Rocket Arena, which has changed names several times, the Q, Rocket Home Mortgage Arena, now just Rocket Arena. There's incredible fire that is super warm, even from the club level, which is basically where the media seats are, in the angle towards the Cavaliers bench. So think about kind of Turner's block area. But more than that, there's just all kinds of fireworks and smoke, and it made it nasty to watch, didn't it, in that first quarter? Stars are aligned. Anything with Fever that Memorial weekend, there or not. I've joked with friends that I feel like Caitlin will wave the green flag. We already know that Michael Strahan's driving the pace car. We know Gronk, who's part of Fox. Remember, Fox is taking over the IndyCar series this year. He'll be in the snake pit as like the honorary grand marshal. To me, you try to get that grand slam with Caitlin waving the green flag. It does not require her to go there days before, or at least the night before, to get practice run in as the pace car driver, like we saw with Tyrese and others before him. For her, they're in town. They should have the day off. I think they have about 3 days between games, unlike last year where they were playing on that brutal stretch of 11 games in 20 days, and they were out. I think they went from Seattle to Las Vegas. I think they're going to try to include her. I don't know if she's willing or wanting to. But the other thing to keep in mind is one of her big endorsements, one of her big deals is with Gainbridge. Well, it's the Indianapolis 500 presented by Gainbridge. So at minimum, I would expect for her to be in a suite there. Outside of her, I don't know if anything else the Fever will do there. They do play on that Saturday. That's notable because it's the 500 festival day. And so traffic will be a little bit crazy, I think, between the parade and then fans trying to get downtown as well, as they face, I believe, the New York Liberty, who won the title last year. It's an incredible Memorial Day weekend when you go from Fever, from the 500 festival to Fever to potentially Pacers, then that following night. There you go. What else do we got here? Matt, an amazing win tonight, my friend. He says Cleveland now 1-5 against the Pacers this season and 67-15 against the rest of the field. That's wild. Keep up the terrific work. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, I didn't know that second number, but I did note in my post-game column, the Pacers now 5-1. They've had that upper hand on Cleveland all season. However, I do caution it that 3-1 regular season record was relatively meaningless. There was one game, I think the second game of the season, before some changes were made, right? They went out and got DeAndre Hunter at the trade deadline. Then they played twice over the final 3 games where the Cavs didn't need it, had already locked up the top spot. And the Pacers, third unit had to beat the third unit of the Cavaliers. They were down by 20 and that 27, I think, in that one, and needed double overtime to come back. So the Pacers are not unfamiliar with making comebacks there in Cleveland to get the big win. 20-plus deficit then, a 20-point deficit a week ago in Game 5 against Milwaukee. And then tonight, here they are, and they did it again. Thanks for joining, Matt. Good to hear from you. D says Pacers 2-point underdogs Friday. No. Pacers 2-point pups means +2 underdogs. Cavs favored. If I read that right, I think you're saying the Cavs are favored for game 3 by 2. Interesting. Dan Granny says, I think Gronk will be booed. I don't think so. Remember his target audience. He's going to the college-age kids in the snake pit that's all about partying. He'll be a good time. What I think would be a possibility if it was not Indianapolis and the Indianapolis 500, and talking about that, you get with the first race on Fox, Fox is paying Tom Brady like $35 million per year. And it's for more than just calling, 16 games an NFL season. It's also being an ambassador for the network. It's a no-brainer. You would have him do the green flag. It takes little effort, but not in Indianapolis. You can't do it here because he would be booed throughout the entire place. Can you imagine? Indianapolis, welcome. What is it? 6-time Super Bowl champ? No, it would be all boos. No chance. Ryan says Pacers definitely took that game, but the Cavs looked to run out of gas with all the players who were out. You could tell they were exhausted by the latter stages. Absolutely. And that's where some of those mistakes happen, right? The late turnover and the foul and the and one. And how about I haven't even talked about this, and I didn't mention it in my column post game, is the Pacers got that forced that turnover on Mitchell because they were picking up full court. Now both teams did it, but especially the Pacers, and they've done that throughout the season. It's one thing they take great pride in, is being able to change the game and apply that full court pressure. And without Nesmith challenging the ball and challenging Mitchell, he's just gliding his way down the court and maybe getting a 50-point game where he finished up with 48 on this one on 15 of 30 shooting. So the defense was sloppy. There's a lot from this film that they can learn from, no doubt about that. How they started the game, the lack of attack and fight early on, the defense in particular, as I referenced earlier, how Mitchell scored 48 points and only one shot was outside the arc, not counting free throws. Just one 3-pointer out of the left corner. That's it. That's got to change. You got to change his shot profile and make things a lot more difficult, I think. Yes, Cavs -2. Interesting. So, wow. That's an interesting one for sure. It's betting on talking about the Cavs 2-point favorites for game 3. That's at Indiana, with the Pacers holding a 2-0 series lead. It's basically saying this Cavs team's too good to go down with their tail between their legs. They're going to win at least a couple probably here. And it's probably taking the early hedge that at least one or maybe two of the players that sat out tonight. Maybe Garland tries to give it a go. Can he give them a half? One of them, I think it's DeAndre Hunter. It's like a dislocated thumb. I'm like, depending on the severity, you can play with a dislocated thumb if it's not your shooting hand. What are we doing, right? You at least got to give it a go for the rest of the season, because then you got the summer. So we'll see. I would doubt all three of them miss it on Friday. You got 2 days between games, so they've had almost a week off by the time Friday arrives. But that definitely is interesting. Cavs money line just 130. I would have figured, if I had to set it, I'd probably figure Pacers +3. Normally it's like 4 to 5 points for the favorite, for the team at home. And given the Pacers' success on their home court and in this series, you would knock a couple of that because of the Cavs' talent and assuming they get health back. But that's definitely interesting. Have to think at least one of the 3 Cavs out tonight will be back. Yeah, exactly. Basically what I was saying there, 100%. I'd be stunned if all 3 of those guys sat out. Quick rundown: Nesmith with 23 points, Siakam with 12, Turner with 23, 8 rebounds, including that monster one late that gave it to Haliburton over 2 Cavs to players. 13 points, 7 rebounds, a career high 13 assists for Andrew Nembhard. He did have 8 turnovers. So that's something where, while he was good in this aspect and handling the ball a lot more, he also threw it away a little bit more. So it's good to have that film for him to turn to. He had a lot more of the ball handling responsibilities, just the way the Cavs were guarding Haliburton and trying to remove him from the equation. It worked the majority of the game, right, to keep Ty to 4 assists. You thought you'd feel good about it, right? As I mentioned earlier, keep Ty to 4 assists, Siakam to 12 points. You figure that's a win no matter who you're playing, but it was not in this case because of what they were able to make up ground late. And then Mathurin finishing with 19 points, 10 of those coming in the third quarter when the Pacers badly needed some kind of spark after the Cavs had already grew their lead back up to 20 points. Good point. 5 blocks for Miles. Should have mentioned that as well. Missed that one in my post-game column. Would have loved to mention that because he was impactful. It was not a complete game. It was not a perfect game. It's not even a great game, I wouldn't say, by the Pacers, but it was good enough. It was a passing grade, and they went ahead and got the win. And so a good job by them ultimately to do so and now have almost a stranglehold on the series. Not yet. They need to get one more. Man, if you could go up 3-1, 3-0 or 3-1, the Pacers would feel really good about where they're at and what lies in front. And then they'll be watching the other series with the Celtics and Knicks very, very closely. Good question, Granny. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Why do I think Pascal hadn't been as involved? I think he needs to be more, and I think all are at fault. I think the Pacers need to call up more plays for him. I think teammates need to seek him out more, and I think Siakam, being the leader of the team, the quiet leader, needs to demand the hell out of it. Guys, give it to me in the post. I'm on a roll right now. Or, I mean, I think into the fourth quarter he had like 5 shots. That's not enough. He's your all-star. He's your all NBA type guy. He's on a max contract. You get him the damn ball and have him more shots. Like, I don't understand him having only 8 and taking the fewest of any of the starters. He should be probably second or third most shots at worst every single game. And this is not one where it was like, hey, it wasn't his night whatsoever. So I think that's an emphasis I would be making coming up in game 3. I want to get him his 20 points. After that, it doesn't much matter because the ball goes around. You're going to have 6 players in double figures like you did tonight. And that's what this team is built on. That's what this team is about. But I was surprised at kind of his lack of touches and shots there, especially until the fourth quarter. Lost track of the number of hard physical hits Neesmith has taken in the playoffs. He rarely gets the benefit of the whistle, but he is a dog. Oh, for sure. He's a guy every team would like. He doesn't talk. He just plays hard. He's clearly outperformed his contract. He's done it at both ends with 23 points in this one, a couple defensive stops. And remember, he did all that late in the game in particular, and that was after, like, in the first quarter, maybe the second, where he tried to draw that offensive foul, took an elbow, a hard hit. I think it was the right call. He was still sliding to his right, I think. It turned out to be a defensive blocking foul, and I think that was right. But, man, that was a tough blow to the midsection, to the sternum, that probably, had him lose his breath there for just a minute because of that hard hit from Mitchell. I do like the fact that while the series has been physical and tough and such, excuse me, there haven't been really any of those technical fouls. There hadn't been any of that drama. I didn't miss that with the Bucks series. I didn't. I do think it's interesting how outspoken Kenny Atkinson has been about the whistle. Maybe you don't really blame him, though, given the fact that a couple of those players got injured on that last sequence of game 1 and were unable to play in game 2 because of it. And now they're down 3 key players. But that said, I think these have been good, hard-fought games. I love that it's strictly basketball and really hadn't been drama or technicals or guys getting in each other's faces or anything. I think it's been a good, clean, competitive series, and that's in large part what's guided it and helped made it very interesting. All right, we're going to wrap up this live post-game show. Pacers winners, 120-119. It did not take overtime or double overtime like it did the final game of the season, but just a remarkable comeback for this Pacers team to now take a 2-0 series lead in the best of 7, with game 3 coming up Friday over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, game 4 then on Mother's Day, Sunday evening. Full coverage at fieldhousefiles.com, Fieldhouse Files podcast, and Fieldhouse Files on YouTube. Thanks so much for those of you who joined me and for those of you who participated in the live chat. As always, I think I should do another podcast leading up to Friday, so plan on that. Otherwise, Friday night it will be, and I will talk to you all again soon. Have a great night, everybody.